All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. This is a real turning point in the whole conversation. Up until now, Krishna has been Arjuna's guide, his charioteer, his friend. But here, this is where he starts to reveal who he really is, his true cosmic nature. And it all kicks off with a powerful promise.
So, right out of the gate, Krishna makes this huge promise. He's not just giving battlefield strategy anymore. He's inviting Arjuna, and really all of us, to gain complete knowledge of the divine. I mean, what a claim, right? It's incredibly bold, and he immediately lays down the conditions for what it takes to receive this ultimate truth.
So, what's the secret? Well, Krishna makes it super direct. To know me in full, he says, you need a couple of things. First, your mind has to be attached to me. That doesn't just mean thinking about God now and then. It means being totally absorbed constantly. And second, taking refuge in me, which is all about complete trust, knowing that everything else in the world is temporary. These aren't just pretty words. They're the actual price of admission for the wisdom he's about to drop.
And get this, the scope of what he's offering is just staggering. He's basically saying, if you understand what I'm about to tell you, that's it. You're done. There's nothing left to learn. This knowledge is the whole package. It's both the book smarts, called jnana, and the direct personal experience of it, called vijnana. You know, it's like the difference between reading a book about gold and actually holding a gold coin in your hand and recognizing its essence in any form.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing, right? But then Krishna hits us with a pretty serious reality check. He says that out of thousands of people, maybe one even tries to achieve this. And out of those who try, barely one actually gets it. But here's the key takeaway from the commentaries. The path isn't rare because it's some impossible mountain to climb. Nope. It's because most of us are just too busy, chasing shiny objects and worldly pleasures to ever build up the intense desire you need to look beyond all that.
So what is this incredible knowledge that so few people attain? Well, Krishna starts to lay out the very blueprint of the universe. He breaks down all of existence into two fundamental natures, two core energies that all come from him. This is really the heart of the chapter's teaching. So here's the map of reality according to Krishna. On one side, you have his lower nature, Prakriti. This is basically all the material stuff, from the obvious things like earth and water to the subtle stuff like our own minds and egos. The key thing to remember about this lower nature is that it's insentient. It's just stuff. It has no consciousness on its own. Then on the other side, you have the higher nature, the jiva, and that is the spark. That's the life force, the conscious soul that lights up and gives meaning to the entire material universe. You've really got to wrap your head around this concept of Prakriti because it's crucial. The material world, this reality we experience every day, it isn't separate from God. It is God's lower energy. It's the very fabric of the universe, from mountains to thoughts. But the catch is, it's not conscious and it's always changing. And this is where we get tripped up, right? We mistake this changing, temporary stuff for the real, ultimate, unchanging truth.
And here is where it all comes together. Krishna states, plain and simple, that everything that has ever been created comes from the combination of these two natures. Every single living thing, from a tiny ant to you and me, is a fusion of that conscious, spiritual energy, the jiva, and the unconscious, material stuff, the prakriti.
Now, this is all a bit abstract, right? So to help us visualize how he fits into all this, Krishna gives one of the most beautiful and famous analogies you'll find anywhere. It's an image that helps us see his presence in absolutely everything.
All this is threaded on me. What a powerful image. Think about a necklace, maybe a string of pearls. You see the individual pearls, right? Each one seems separate and distinct. That's how we see the world. A person here, a planet there, a tree over there. But what we often miss is the single, invisible thread that runs through every single pearl, holding them all together, giving the whole thing its shape and existence. Krishna says, I am that thread.
And just to make sure we really get it, he gives us a whole bunch of examples. He starts with, I am the sapidity in water. He's not the water itself, but the very essence of taste that makes water, well, water.
Then he continues, I am the radiance in the moon and the sun. Again, he's not the physical star or moon, but he's the principle of light itself. He's the very shine that makes them brilliant.
And he's the sweet fragrance in earth. The commentators point out that the word used implies the pure, natural, unspoiled scent of the earth. He's its fundamental essence.
And then he brings it all home with the most profound point. He says, know me as the eternal seed of all beings. He explains that unlike a normal seed that gets destroyed when it sprouts into a plant, this divine seed can't be destroyed. It is the single, everlasting source that everything comes from, and it's the place everything will eventually return to.
Okay, so you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. If God is the thread running through everything, the taste in water, the seed of all life, if he's literally everywhere, then why on earth don't we see it? It's a fantastic question, and Krishna has an answer. It all comes down to a single concept, Maya, the divine illusion.
So why can't we see the thread? Krishna says it's because our vision is clouded by something called the three gunas, which are like modes of nature. You've got sattva, which is all about goodness and clarity, rajas, which is passion and activity, and tamas, which is ignorance and laziness. He says we're all looking at the world through a combination of these three lenses, and they delude us. We get so caught up in the color and shape of the individual beads that we completely miss the thread holding them all together.
And here is the really tricky part. This isn't just any old illusion. Krishna calls it his divine illusion, meaning it's literally woven from his own energy. So that's a huge problem, isn't it? If the very way we perceive reality is distorted by a power that comes from God himself, how can any of us ever hope to break free? It feels like the game is rigged.
But the answer he gives is, well, it's just beautifully simple and profound. You can't fight it, you can't outsmart it, you can't muscle your way through it. Krishna says the only way to get across this vast ocean of illusion is to take refuge in the one who created it. You have to surrender to the very source of the illusion itself. The only way out is to go straight to the top.
So even though this illusion is incredibly powerful, it's not a lost cause, not at all. Krishna clarifies that there are people who do manage to turn towards him, and he breaks them down into 4 basic types of virtuous people who start this journey.
And these 4 categories, they're so universal, so relatable, you'll almost certainly recognize them. First, you have the distressed, the person who's suffering and calls out to God for help. Second, the seeker of wealth, someone who prays for success, for material things. Third, you have the seeker of knowledge, the curious one who just wants to understand how it all works. And finally, there's the man of wisdom, the one who already knows the truth and worships simply out of pure, unconditional love.
The story of Dhruva is the perfect example of this. He started out as a seeker of wealth. He began this incredibly intense spiritual practice with one goal and one goal only, to get a kingdom bigger than anyone else's. But a funny thing happened. As he focused his mind on God, the very process started to change him, to purify him. So by the time God actually showed up to grant his wish, Dhruva didn't want the kingdom anymore. It just goes to show you, it doesn't matter why you start the journey. The act of seeking itself purifies your reasons for doing it.
Now, Krishna makes it clear that he loves all 4 of these types of seekers. They're all noble. But he puts one on a whole other level, the jnani, the person of wisdom. And what he says about this person is just extraordinary. He says the wise one isn't just dear to him. He says that person is my very own self. I mean, just think about that for a second. That's the ultimate statement of unity. The wise person wants nothing in return because they've realized the final truth. There's no difference between the one who worships and the one being worshipped.
And so that's the framework Krishna leaves us with. 4 timeless reasons people seek something more: desperation, desire, curiosity, and love. It really makes you think, doesn't it? As you look at the world, and maybe more importantly, as you look at yourself, which of those paths feels most familiar? Which one have you been on? It's a question that takes this ancient wisdom and makes it deeply, deeply personal.